Askreddit. Teachers of Reddit. What's the smartest / most creative way of cheating that you have seen? My teacher shared with us a story about how since she allowed eating during her tests, one person pulled out a giant bag of M&Ms and ate a specific color corresponding to A, B, C, D. It was a two-student duo and they only got caught when another student ratted them out. Edit grammar. What a snitch. They got caught when they heard a snicker. I was supervising a final chemistry exam along with another coworker. Not 15 minutes in, a hand slams down on a desk and I turn around expecting the worst, only to see my coworker angrily shouting at a pair of really frightened 10th graders whose desk he smashed. Amidst the shouting I caught the words, Morse code. The guy proceeded to take them to the office. I called a hallway supervisor to take over and ran after the group. Apparently, the kids were silently tapping the answers amongst themselves in Morse code. Not even with their fingernails, just the fingertips. I never heard a thing. My coworker happened to catch B in Morse code or something. I honestly thought he finally went crazy solely because of his appearance. Picture Robin Williams in Jumanji going, "What year is it?" I'm 100% sure that if this coworker weren't in the room, they'd have gotten away with it for sure. So they learned Morse code but couldn't study for a test. Amazing. I passed a pop quiz in high school by looking across the room and focusing on the top of the smart girl's pencil and trying to decipher if she wrote A, B, C or D after the teacher asked each question. It actually turned out more successful than I thought it would. Edit, spelling. Hey, I mentioned how I cheated on a quiz. What did you expect? Winking face. Also, I'm all about academic integrity when it comes to important higher education when relative to your field of work, but I don't understand loading immense amounts of needless information into young, hormonal teenagers and getting upset or surprised that they don't have the mental stamina to deal with it all and would rather cheat. You have Sharingan. This is a creative one. I like the observancy. One of my old teachers told us a story about a student who had rigged up a tiny scroll of paper in a wristwatch with notes written on it. He turned the scroll by winding the watch. He ended up getting caught because he was winding his watch so damn much during the exam, but the teacher loved the creativity. In elementary/middle school we had to write a paragraph each week featuring all the vocabulary words included in that unit. One clever kid wrote something along these lines. One day kid's name had to write a paragraph for English class. He sat down, picked up a pen and used these words in it, proceeds to list out all the words. The teacher only let it go once because she never saw that happen until then. My exams that used a graphic calculator, TI-84, required us to show the examiners a proof of reset screen before the papers started, so instead of actually studying for my papers, I painstakingly redrew the proof of reset screen pixel by pixel in the TI-84's pixel art program and stored all my notes in it. College physics girl with a really intricate tattoo on her leg wrote formulas in between the tattoo lines. Even looking closely you couldn't tell unless you knew what you were looking for. You could tell it was test day because she wore shorts. So then how'd you find out? I think I saw this one. Teacher is checking out the student's leg and ends up finding out SHES cheating. He threatens to suspend her unless. There was a class that allowed you to bring one sheet of handwritten notes to exams. I knew a guy that created a font of his own handwriting and used to print the entire study guide onto a piece of notebook paper, front and back. He even set the font color to pencil gray and managed to get the margins and spacing exactly right to look like it had been handwritten. Modern problems require modern solutions. With this story I've seen about kids being allowed to bring in a note card sized 4x6 for their exam. The teacher forgot to say the measurement, e.g. centimeters or inches, so someone brought in a piece of card that was 4 foot by 6 foot covered in notes. Not the student but the teacher. So, the teacher, let's call him Mr. A, had a reputation for being a phenomenal teacher who had every student engaged, invested in his class, no matter how mundane the subject. Anytime he asked a question, every student's hand would shoot in the air with them shouting things like "call on me" or "I know the answer." Simply, Mr. developed a reputation in the district as one of its best teachers. Fast forward a couple years and I'm grabbing coffee with Mr. And I ask him, "What's your trick? How did you get every student brought in?" His response, "Well, I told the kids every time we had a visitor in class, I need you all to raise your hand like I was giving away free candy. But if you don't know the answer, raise your left hand. If you do know it, raise your right hand, so I know who to call on and we all look good." Worked like a charm. I remember a story from my OChem professor. This student all semester who wasn't showing up to class kept getting his score improved significantly after regrades. They got the tests back, had a day to review them, and were allowed to resubmit for a regrade. They knew he was cheating because of the unlikelihood of the grading mistakes on multiple exams, but the TAS who graded it couldn't confidently say it wasn't their handwriting. Ultimately, it was an office worker for the department who figured it out near the end of the semester. His staples were angled different than the exams handed out that were mass stapled. He was recreating the test, printing it, re-answering it, and then grading it in the same pen as the TAS, and had done a good job copying the writing style. AWH, such a small detail. RIP, so close to glory. I'm a high school teacher, but this story is about my own high school math teacher playing us and cheating. It was an honors algebra, geometry class, and it was well known that Mr. D reused the same questions every year, just changed the numbers. He made a big deal about making sure we all gave our exam papers back to him after we had looked at our scores and gone over everything together to prevent cheating for the next year. Well, of course, some of my classmates got their hands on a complete set of tests from the previous year. Soon, everyone had a set. Before each exam, we would sit together and make sure we knew how to solve every problem on the test so we could do it on the real exam with different numbers. Years later, when I became a teacher myself, I saw Mr. D at a funeral. I confessed to him that this is what we used to do. He smirked and said, "Who do you think leaked the test packet to get you to study?" Mr. D had figured out that kids won't study if the teacher suggests it, but if they think they're getting away with something, they totally will, so he managed to get a test packet out and circulating as contraband. Blew my mind. Not sure if this would work anymore, but if I had a paper to write on a book one didn't read, I would find a well-written paper online. Then translate the entire thing from English to German, German to French, French to Spanish, then Spanish back to English. Pull the original paper and the new one up side by side and clean up the grammar on the new paper and you've got the same concept, but written just different enough to not be plagiarism. Worked like a charm. I'm not a teacher, but I was a student. I had a friend who knew Kurdish and Turkish. We all know Turkish OFC anyway. He had to move from his city due earthquake and come to opposite side of the country, Istanbul. He was writing his notes in Kurdish on his desk and one desk in front of him. Since none of the teachers and us knew Kurdish, it was like gibberish to us, but we knew he was writing down notes in Kurdish. Asking teachers what the best ideas are. Slick move up. The best ones are the ones that the teachers didn't notice.